Welcome to Fans Fight Back on the PitchBoxing app with myself, Martin Theobald, and I've got with me, and I'm very lucky to have from behind the gloves, Jeremiah. How are you, Jeremiah?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yourself?
I am good, and with Wi-Fi now, finally, Af. How are you, Af?
I'm all good, thanks. Yeah, feeling connected.
That's boxing for you. Feel connected. Yeah, two people well in the know about boxing. Jeremiah, as we just mentioned, behind the gloves, so he gets to speak and deal with boxers on a regular basis. Af, who never likes to go too far into it, but sees the world from the amateur perspective, and they come all the way through and they go into the pros, so he sees them before we see them. And so there might be some names that come up today that you've seen long before any of us, I suspect, Af. And so now we're going to catch up on them, starting with Joshua Buatsi. Joshua Buatsi. He's taken the leap today from Matchroom, DAZN, and in the process, he chucked mud over the old DAZN app. We'll come on to that, though, because I think they were really interesting comments. But start with Jeremiah. Is it the right move, do you think, for Joshua Buatsi?
Very interesting question, actually. So I think Josh's career has been an interesting one. When he first went to the Olympics, got a bronze medal, I think there was high expectations for him. In terms of his batch from the UK, in terms of the Olympic squad, he was, I guess, touted to be sort of one of the top guys. But I guess if you've seen how his career has gone, it's sort of been up and down. So he had his early fights where he was stopping quite a few people. I remember when he fought Liam Conroy. I think that was for the British title. So he's been in some good fights, but I guess we haven't seen that next step up. We did see a very good fight, though, between himself and Craig Richards. And I think you can almost say that fight is definitely above domestic level, because Craig Richards mixed up with Bivol, and he done well in that fight. So overall, I would say his career has been up and down, and I think we're just waiting for, I guess, the next steps. But in terms of the move to boxer, I'm not too sure. So I guess the first aspect is he said he was offered a huge amount of money to fight Bivol. But what that meant was he would have to extend his contract with DAZN, maybe 3 or 4 more fights. And he said he didn't want to do that. And what he'd been stressing a lot, or what he'd been saying in the interview, was, I want to fight somewhere where people can see me. They don't need to download the app and put in an email address. And he's referring to DAZN. So in terms of that, if it's to get your eyeballs out there, then definitely I think Boxer is a good platform. However, the caveat for me is, what sort of stable do Boxer have for light heavyweights? So we know Eddie Hearn has got works with Bivol. He's also got, I guess, Callum Smith, and he's got other 168 fighters that are also coming up. So I guess it'll be interesting to see what fights Boxer can give Buatsi. I know we've got Dan Aziz there, but yeah, not too sure what else will be out there for him.
Af, what do you reckon? I mean, you've known Joshua, I'm guessing, for many years from that amateur, but you'd have seen him long before the Sky Sports cameras ever touched him. Yeah. Are you impressed with how his career's gone? And do you think this is the right time for him to go back to Sky?
Yeah, I think I probably watched him for the first time when he was probably 16, 17, I guess, in Essex. And I think the last time we spoke on this, we did an overachiever, underachiever task. And I think we probably said that Buatsi was underachieving at his current level. Not saying that he's not very good, saying that his ceiling is probably a lot higher than what it currently is. I think with Buatsi going to Boxer, it's like that small fish, big pond sort of thing. Has he gone too late to Boxer? Is he going to be the big name for Boxer? If he'd stayed with DAZN, is it going to play out like was it Mick Hennessy when he only had Carl Froch left or something, or the other way around?
Yeah, no, Hennessy started with that. I remember that photo. We had like Fury, Froch, was it Darren Barker and somebody else, I think. And then by the end, yeah, it was a stable of one.
Yeah, so maybe Buatsi should have stuck to his guns and could have been the poster boy for DAZN. I know they're probably going a lot more international with all their stable and everything. But yeah, like Jeremiah said, like, is he just going to be, ticking the boxes for the armchair fan in the end? Which maybe that's where the money is. But you got to look at De Gale's career, and he didn't really go mainstream in the UK with Sky and things like that in parts of his career. He went to America, and I know he went there because he said he could earn 5 times the amount of money that he could in the UK. So maybe Buatsi wants to be a popular boxer and have fights rather than money. But yeah, depends where you want your career to go, I guess.
I think there's a few things to unpack out of all of that. You see, Boxer, they've just got the Alan Babbage fight, haven't they, over in
Poland?
In Poland, yeah. And they also had Dan Aziz over in France last weekend. And Shalom kind of referenced today the fact that they're trying to build kind of strategic relationships with other promotional bodies. I'll be honest, I've never heard of this Polish body. I've never heard of the French one at the weekend either. Like, yeah. I can't imagine they're laden with dozens of top-level fighters. And so... All the money, yeah. So I don't think those... you can kind of say, yes, we've got these relationships overseas, but that's not going to open doors for top Joshua Buatsi fights. We want to see Buatsi against Anthony Yard, Beterbiev, Bivol, Callum Smith. None of those happen on Sky, do they?
Do you know what I think it is? What I think has happened is Eddie Hearn's been the main guy for such a long time. You've got Frank Warren, who's, I guess, been in and out. I remember vividly, I think 2018 or 2019, there was a picture of Frank Warren's stable and Matchroom, and they were pretty evenly matched. You had your Yards, you had your Dylan White, AJ, etc. But I think currently what's happening is I think boxers are coming into the scene. They're investing a lot of money almost to capture and grab market attention. Maybe not market share, but I think they want people to know the brand. Because when Eddie left, there was a lot of uncertainty about what's going to happen next with Sky. So I think they're coming out and they're offering lucrative deals. Now, whether those deals are sustainable or not, we don't know. The same thing happened with DAZN. So when DAZN initially came out, I remember they was given very, very, very big offers.
$1 billion. Got $1 billion. Chuck it around.
And they were throwing a lot of money around. And then I remember Hearn saying, we can't afford to keep paying these fighters. So if you look at Okoli, for example, as well, Okoli, Buatsi, they both left Matchroom, going to Sky. I think they've had their purses have been matched. So if they're matching their purses, why are they going over to Sky and not staying with DAZN, who I guess initially brought them up?
And I think that comes down to, you referenced it earlier, Jeremiah, the comments by Buatsi about, it's not quite verbatim, but it was something around, I want my friends to know that I'm fighting, and I want them to know that it's on TV, as you say, not to download an app and enter your bank details. Which, to me, alludes, as you said, if Matchroom have matching rights on any contract, which kind of they've alluded to they do, and Buatsi's alluded to they did try and match it, or certain aspects of it. I think the one thing that gets left out of that conversation is that as a boxer, your other income stream outside of what you get for fighting is your sponsorship availability. Now, if I'm a boxer and I'm trying to advertise myself to a potential sponsor, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get more money for being on Sky Sports than have to explain what on earth DAZN is and how many people may or may not be subscribing to it, because nobody ever tells us. I think that's a huge element, that as a boxer, if you're trying to maximize your potential revenue streams, of course you'd want to be on Sky, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely. And even if you look at Buatsi, for example, I think he's just about to turn 30, or he's 30 already. So one of the things he said in many of his interviews today, which stood out to me, were boxers, we only get one shot. Promoters get multiple. So he's coming into the latter part of his career now. He hasn't had a world title shot yet. He's probably got maybe 5 years left. So he's probably thinking, yes, I think he wants people to see him. on TV. But I don't think that's the main reason. I think that's a byproduct of him being on Sky, making good money, and at the end of it, he'll be more broadly broadcasted. So I think that's what works for him, and the same for Coley.
Af, what do you reckon his main driving force? And I realise I'm not asking like, have you spoken to him and therefore you know, but more, what do you reckon his main driving force for making the leap to Sky? Is it to get fights, to make more money, to get a world title fight, to be more active? It could be a combination of all of them, I suppose.
I think maybe he's probably playing the longer game than maybe I would play. Like I said, I think, would you say he's just turned 30?
He's 30 yesterday.
30. Okay, yeah, 30, just turned 30.
Yeah, so just turned 30. So I know you said he's got 5 years left, but would you want to be fighting for another 5 years? Like, I look at it like he was in Rio 2016 Olympics, yeah? And do you think he's going to get a world title challenge by next summer? Yes or no?
No.
It's difficult. No, probably not.
Probably not. So then he would have gone, and next year's Paris 2024, yeah? So he would have gone 2 Olympic cycles and still not got to the world level, which I think is quite surprising for someone that had quite so much potential. The only thing I can maybe think is, I know he's a bit of a machine when it comes to training. I don't think he drinks, does he? He's teetotal.
No.
So he probably maybe he does have a longer career than some other boxers that aren't so disciplined. So maybe he does have 5 years left in him. But yeah, if I was 30 and an Olympic medalist, I'd be just going for the money, I think, at this point, rather than trying to impress my mates because I'm boxing on Sky. I would say, where's the money? Okay, I'm going to America. I'm going to try and fight anybody for 5 times the amount of money and go that way. So yeah, I wouldn't be going to boxer, is what I'd say.
Quick question for you, Af. Sorry to cut you in. So yeah, what you said I think makes a lot of sense. But I guess if you look at staying with the zone, I think the stage he was out of the zone is you're being offered the Bivol fight. As soon as you take the Bivol fight, you're in world title territory now. So the fights will not be easy. I think what's potentially happening for him is he goes to boxer. Apparently he's fighting in May in Birmingham. He's probably going to fight in a 10-rounder, maybe a 10-rounder against someone who's fairly decent. If he does beat that person, I think next what Sky will try and do is make the Aziz fight, because that will be some sort of big fight. And then maybe after that point, it's like, okay, does he fight a Lyndon Arthur or does he go for a world title? But saying that, after Aziz, if he does, let's say he beats a guy on May the 6th, and then he beats Aziz, are you ready straight away to jump to world title level? So I think boxer's going to be a slower process. He's probably getting big guarantees of purses for each of the fights. And he's probably thinking, okay, maybe 3 more fights and then we get to world title level. But is that the right decision? I don't know.
But also there's a bit of an elephant in the room of Eddie Hearn out of all of this, right? He's walked away from DAZN. He's absolutely taken the piss out of DAZN on his way out the door, saying about this app and you have to get your mates to enter their bank details. Now, Hearn isn't, in my view, Hearn isn't necessarily vindictive as a person. I think he comes across as quite a reasonable human being. Unless you cross him, then I suspect he probably is. Now, we're talking about, is he going to fight for a world title? There's only 2 world title holders. One is Dimitri Bivol, who Hearn has access to. The other is Artur Beterbiev. And he's got the mandatory now against Callum Smith. So Joshua Buatsi's got to be hoping Callum Smith doesn't go and win that, because then Hearn's got all the world titles tied up. And I'm pretty sure he's going to say, no. You go and get yourself in a mandatory position. And even then, we'll go to purse bids and you're going to have to come over here on an app that you've just slagged off.
I know. Sorry, I know we're not getting on to Ryder yet, but how much is Ryder getting for Canelo fight? Do we know that?
No, I'm not sure.
No,
it will be. I think it'll be a couple million at least.
Couple million, yeah. We're agreed. It's probably a couple of million. I think.
Yes, definitely.
Rocky Fielding got 2 million, didn't he?
With Stag do in Vegas. And over his belt.
So So if
That
you
wasn't a
were,
world title fight. That was a joke.
if you were Buatsi, right, and like you say, you could stick with the zone and get the path to Bivol for 2 million, or you want to fight Dan Aziz and you'll be popular in the UK, but you won't earn 2 million, and then you might get onto the Bivol in the end if Eddie Hearn lets you. Which one are you taking?
But do you know what? I don't think that's how he's thinking. But what I think he's thinking is, the first thing is, I think he's got some good guaranteed purses. So let's say he's not getting 2 more. For all we know, he's getting 300,000 or 300,000 because he's 3 years. He fights this fight in May, he wins it. You fight Aziz in a fight which they'll promote it in a big one. They're friends, so they'll make it quite of a big fight. You win that one, and then I think already Buatsi saying he's top 3 in most governing boards. So he's going to force himself into a mandatory position. But then what you said is there's a high chance he's then going to have to fight on his own anyway, because Bivol is probably going to still have the belts. And who knows up with Beterbiev and Canelo Smith. Canelo Smith could beat Beterbiev. So I think this one is probably to do with, I think it's a mixture of money. Maybe I think generally a relationship has broken down, because this is the most I've seen Buatsi ever talk. He's not someone that talks a lot. He hasn't, and he hasn't directly bad-mouthed Eddie. He almost has just said, "Oh, the app is not. My friends can't see it," and I think that's his polite way of saying it.
Yeah, it's not for me. It's not for me. I'd rather be on a more mainstream platform, which is fair enough. I don't see an issue with that. The other interesting thing was he's left 258 management. That was announced today. He's gone and joined. Is it Amir Khan, David Hay, and some sports agent that was done a few years back for some illicit gambling or something like that? Like, they've set up a sports management company, and he's gone and joined them.
Is Okoli done the same or not?
Okoli left 258, didn't he? I think
Okoli left 258 as well.
Yeah.
What do you guys think is the cause of that? Because we know obviously AJ heads that up. Do you think it's because there's, I guess, we know they've got friendships. Okoli and Buatsi have got friendships with AJ, but he's also closely tied to Eddie Hearn.
Yeah, well, he's also tied to the zone, isn't he? He's like their brand ambassador, and I think when they made that long-term agreement, he presumably became not an investor but a shareholder of sorts.
Shareholder.
And if your 2 mates who you manage have just gone, "Nah, I don't want to be on there anymore," it's not a great look, is it? So probably
did Buatsi actually say that stuff in an interview, did he, or was that a tweet or something?
No, he said it. He, like, the first line of his press conference was, "I don't want to be on an app where, people don't know about it and they have to enter their bank details." That's pretty much verbatim what he said.
Yeah, the main thing he was saying was he had a tough fight against Craig Richards and a hard training camp, but people around him are asking him, "Oh, when are you next fighting?" And he's like, "Oh, I fought last weekend." So yeah.
All right, let's move on. I want your view, right? Just one word answer. That's it. You can have your time to think about it. Who's got the strongest stable in the UK of active boxers? It's not easy, is it?
No.
I guess it depends how you want to look at it. You can go down a route of who's got the most world champions, and then you can also go down to the level of who's got the most, let's say, B-level fighters. So someone could have,
right? If you had all of the home fighters over there and you put them in against the best possible matchup, don't have to be in their stable, could be against anyone, which one would you go and watch out of Boxer, Matchroom, Queensberry?
Queensberry for me. Right.
Is your question that if they 2 people fought from the same stable, or if you just wanted to watch?
No. So if you could have the same opponent. So like for Matchroom, it might be like you've got Joshua White. I'm struggling after that.
Yeah.
Callum Smith, John Ryder. They could fight anyone in the world. And Queensberry, you do the same. Like, which of those 3 stables would you go and watch their card of?
Do you know what it is? I've seen quite a few of the shows, and what I do see with Eddie is Eddie tends to have more, I feel like he tends to have more 50-50 fights across the card. Whereas I think Frank will normally have a big main fight, but then the undercard isn't that great. So it really depends. But boxers quite exciting now as well. They've got new signings: Riapo, Chris Pongo, Kyle Dubois. So you probably say boxer right now. Boxer got
Adam
exciting.
Azim, Chris Billum-Smith.
Yeah, you probably say boxer now.
Yeah, and they didn't have a stable 18 months ago. They didn't have anything.
Crazy. It's crazy.
I'm probably with Af in that I would just about towards Queensbury.
What's your reasoning behind that? I'm just intrigued to know. Both of you.
They have the most, in my view, they have the most balanced of like top level names: Fury, Joe Joyce, maybe Anthony Yard could just about creep into that, and then they have a lot of talent that, in my view, in 2-3 years' time will be domestically very good. But at the moment, we perhaps don't see too much of them. But I mean, to be honest, you could make a case for any of them. I ran a vote earlier on Twitter, and Boxer got 31%, Matchroom got 28%, and Queensbury got 41% out of 416 votes. So it's a decent sample size, and yeah, I'm just intrigued.
I think for me, I would say Queensbury. If there's like a Royal Rumble style of chuck everybody in the middle, there's only one right answer, and that is Queensbury, because no man born from his mother can beat the Gypsy King.
But do you know what's interesting about what you just said, Af, as well? Because you're right. If you've got that card, you could have, let's say, Fury. If I just look at the stable, Fury versus AJ, you could have Yard versus Buatsi. You could have Dubois versus so many names out there. Hergovich. Who else?
Yeah, Joe Joyce against Wilder. Give me that.
Yeah, so you're right. If you look at it from that perspective, where if you went to Boxer, Boxer haven't got the champions yet. So like Riapo, okay, we could put Riapo against who? Akoli, big fight. Chris Congo, we could put Chris Congo in there with Conor Benn. They're both at the same weight. So there's some good fights. Matchroom also got your Callum Smiths, AJ versus Fury, so the reverse. But yeah, I agree with you. Queensbury there, they've got some good fighters there.
All right, Canelo Ryder. You mentioned it earlier. Af. Are you happy with it? Because I've seen some people criticize it, and I don't really understand the criticism.
No, I don't see what the criticism for. I think I always try to think of my sort of mates' WhatsApp groups when some of these matchups are made. And to be honest, the armchair fan probably doesn't know too much about John Ryder at the moment. He's been in a good couple of fights, recently. His last few, he's probably gone above his ceiling of what his his original potential was. So that's great. Who wouldn't want a payday against Canelo? You want payday. So, I've got no problem with it, to be honest. If I keep talking about money like it's the biggest it's the biggest thing, but if that's go for it. You're going to have his retirement fund and a bit of generational wealth. So, I don't expect fireworks from the actual fight. I think it might be probably just going through the motions for Canelo. I'm not sure how much of a fight Ryder's really going to put up, but we'll see. I mean, it's anything can happen, but yeah, I've got no qualms with it.
Jeremiah, are you all right with it, or would you rather have seen something different?
So the way I look at it is, I guess for me, Ryder has done the rounds. So he beat Daniel Jacobs in a very good fight, and we know Daniel Jacobs is a well-known name. Controversial loss against Callum Smith.
He beat Callum Smith. Don't need to go into that.
Yeah, so that situation. So based off of that, I think he's done what he needed to do, and he's landed himself the big payday against Canelo. So as I've said, the armchair fan will be like, oh, what's going on? Why is he fighting this guy? But there's one word that everyone's forgetting: mandatory. He's mandatory challenger. He's worked his way up the rankings to get this mandatory challenger spot. So yeah, why not? The same happened for Rocky Fielding. He had a few fights, then he went and fought Canelo, made his big payday, and then he settled him to the sunset.
And Rocky had that WBA regular, didn't he, as super middle? Yeah, that was Canelo's first step up to super middle, and they called him a world title champion because Rocky took a first-class flight over there to hand him his belt on one knee and then buggered off back to Liverpool with absolute generational wealth as after.
I was the same. At that stage, think about it. Rocky fought his last fight was against Dan Aziz. How much would he have got paid for that fight? And I think he's retired now. So you take the big fight and you sail off into the sunset. You've done the rounds already.
Yeah, I'm amazed he carried on. I'm absolutely amazed he carried on. I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
I'd have turned up, handed that little ginger lunatic my belt, and taken my money and retired. I wouldn't have bothered after that. Fair play.
You can even tell in the fight, he was just happy to be there. In Madison Square, he was just happy to be on the one stage, and he deserves it. So, yeah, money and run.
No, I agree completely. And there's nobody else for me that Canelo needs to fight, really. Like, what, you bring Charlo up from middle, you'll get criticised for bringing someone up. You go to Beterbiev, you probably lose. Bivol, you probably lose again.
Benavidez.
Yeah, but he's tied up with Plant, isn't he? So
after that, so obviously Plant's got Benavidez, Ryder versus Canelo. After that, fight Benavidez, because he's already won undisputed at 168. He's at 160. Who's left? You're right. Jamal Charlo comes up. You fight Jamal Charlo. Boo Boo, who wanted a payday.
No one needs to see an Andrade fight.
But Boo Boo's, you see, Boo Boo, I genuinely think Andrade is a good fighter. He just has he needs to fight one of the champions, like the top guys. But he's a good fighter.
No, he is. He is. I get bored watching him. But right, I'm really conscious of time. But gentlemen, I've enjoyed your company. Thank you so much for. We didn't even get onto Fury Usyk. We'll have to cover that another time. But it's been a pleasure. I thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. Cheers.
So yeah, take care. Thank you for Fans Fight Back on PitchBoxing. Jeremiah, Af, pleasure. Thank you very much. Take care.